Before Amina ever held a sword or stormed a kingdom, she was born into the fire of destiny. Around the mid-16th century, in the wealthy Hausa city-state of Zazzau, modern-day Zaria in Nigeria, Amina was born to Queen Bakwa Turunku, the founder of the Zazzau dynasty. Her birth wasn't seen as ordinary. Elders claimed lightning struck thrice the night she arrived, a sign the gods had marked her for something unimaginable. From infancy, she showed a boldness that defied the norms of royal daughters, playing war games with palace guards while other girls learned etiquette. Amina's youth was not the pampered life of a princess. She was trained like a warrior, fighting, riding horses, and studying military tactics from royal generals. Her brother Karama, who later ruled before her, often admitted Amina would have made a fiercer king. Hausa traditions revered powerful women like priestesses and spiritualists, but never had they seen one destined to wield raw political and military might. Amina wasn't just learning to rule, she was preparing to conquer. As she matured, Amina became the jewel of Zazzau's court, not for beauty, but for brilliance. Traders, emissaries, and rulers from Kano, Katsina, and beyond spoke her name in both awe and anxiety. She was magnetic, untouchable, and already respected as a master of strategy. Oral legends say she could disarm a warrior blindfolded, and that horses knelt before her in submission. Her fame became prophecy. Yet Amina's path wasn't laid out with roses, it was soaked in blood. She watched court rivals plot, watched men underestimate her, and listened as griots whispered that a woman could never rule a kingdom meant for men. Every whisper fueled her rage, and every doubt sharpened her sword. Little did they know, the girl born of thunder would soon ride with lightning in her hands. Amina wasn't coming to rule like a queen. She was coming to redefine what it meant to rule, as something far greater. When King Karama died in the late 16th century, the royal court of Zazzau plunged into a storm of succession. Many expected another male heir to be crowned, but the people had other plans. The whispers of Amina's greatness had matured into a cry for revolution. Warriors, nobles, and even rival states recognized one undeniable truth. Only Amina had the fire to lead. So against tradition, she was crowned Queen of Zazzau. The earth shook. The drums of change thundered through Hausaland, and a woman became king. But Amina didn't just ascend a throne, she mounted a warhorse the very next day. Within 3 months of her coronation, she led her first military campaign, crushing a rebellious territory to the north and forcing it into submission. She didn't hesitate, didn't falter. Her enemies expected a queen draped in robes. What they got was a blood-soaked tactician in iron and leather, commanding tens of thousands with deadly precision. Her army marched with unmatched discipline, and her presence alone was said to make entire towns surrender before the first arrow flew. Her leadership was unlike anything the Hausa world had seen. Amina enforced brutal discipline but inspired unwavering loyalty. She rewarded loyalty with wealth, punished betrayal with fire, and built an elite cavalry force that became her sword and shield. Legend says she fought at the front lines, her crimson cloak a banner of dread to her enemies. No male ruler dared challenge her authority. Those who tried were either defeated in battle or mysteriously vanished in the night. Amina's campaigns became legendary. She reportedly expanded Zazzau's territory far beyond its original borders, reaching from the river Niger in the west to the edges of the Sahara in the north. Town after town fell, not just from force but from awe. She offered protection, wealth, and order to those who surrendered peacefully, and devastation to those who resisted. In one story, she destroyed an entire city after its chief insulted her leadership, leaving nothing but ashes and a single message: never mock a woman of war. But behind the terror, there was brilliance. Amina didn't conquer for vanity. She was building an empire, securing trade routes, taxing merchant caravans, and transforming Zazzau into a commercial titan. Her war wasn't chaos. It was economic strategy, spiritual dominance, and national rebirth. She She wasn't just a queen, she had become the embodiment of Hausa vengeance and divine justice. Queen Amina's empire was not just a patchwork of conquered cities. It was a living force, stitched together by walls, blood, trade, and sheer willpower. As her campaigns raged on, Amina built fortified cities across her territory, erecting high defensive walls known as Ganuwar Amina, Amina's walls. These were not symbolic. They were monstrous earthworks that protected towns, controlled movements, and asserted her domination long after her armies moved on. Many of these walls still stand across northern Nigeria today, whispering ancient echoes of a woman who ruled like a god. With her conquests, Amina achieved what no Hausa ruler before her ever had. She transformed Zazzau into a military, commercial, and cultural superpower. She restructured taxation systems on trade caravans, especially those carrying gold, salt, ivory, kola nuts, and slaves. Her grip on regional trade routes meant neighboring kingdoms had to negotiate or perish. Merchants who crossed her lands either paid tribute or watched their wealth seized and lives forfeited. Amina understood what modern empires would later learn. Economic control is the sharpest weapon of all. But even as she expanded Zazzau's influence across vast distances, Amina didn't just rule with an iron fist. She ruled with intelligence. She allowed conquered territories to keep their local leaders, so long as they pledged loyalty and tribute to her. She fostered Hausa culture through storytelling, music, and warrior rituals, establishing a royal aesthetic that inspired fear and pride in equal measure. To be under Amina was not a shame, it became an honor. People called her Saronia Amina, Queen Amina, mother of warriors, guardian of the Hausa. Amina's dominion wasn't without controversy. Some legends suggest she took lovers in every city she conquered, men chosen for beauty and strength, but executed the morning after to ensure no one could claim her body or her power. While this story may be exaggerated or mythologized, it paints a picture of how larger-than-life her image became, untouchable, divine, and mercilessly strategic. Whether by love or war, none could hold her. Ultimately, her empire wasn't merely a physical one, it was psychological. Amina embedded herself into the spiritual DNA of her people. She created a legacy that refused to be erased. She became more than a ruler. She became the archetype of unstoppable womanhood, a goddess of iron, flame, and thunder who shattered the idea that power belonged only to men. Long after her death, Queen Amina refused to vanish. In the villages, deserts, and shrines of Hausaland, her name began to transcend royalty. She became myth, then goddess. Griots and priestesses whispered of visions where Amina appeared in golden armor, her spear radiating fire, riding a black horse that never touched the ground. Some claim she never died at all, that she ascended, not unlike the Orishas of Yoruba myth or the queens of ancient Kush. In the sacred oral traditions of the Hausa, Amina was no longer just a queen. She became the divine embodiment of war, strategy, and feminine vengeance. Local folklore told of sacred rivers that shifted course when Amina approached, of forests that grew silent in her presence. In some tales, she could speak to birds and command the wind. Children in Zazzau were taught that disobedience could summon the wrath of Amina. Women invoked her name for strength during childbirth, and warriors carved her symbol, a rising spear, on their swords before battle. To her people, she became a protective spirit, a punisher of injustice, and a guide to victory. This divine transformation didn't happen by accident. African societies often deified rulers who achieved extraordinary feats, and Amina shattered every ceiling. She had fought like Shango, ruled like Oduduwa, and strategized like Sun Tzu. Oral historians began to blend fact and faith until her life became sacred. Secret women's societies claimed to channel her spirit during rituals. In some remote areas of northern Nigeria, there are still masked festivals where dancers wear armor, claiming to be possessed by her essence. Yet, this divine narrative wasn't without resistance. As Islam spread deeper into Hausa territories, many male scholars tried to downplay Amina's spiritual significance. Some scribes edited her out of records, or claimed she was simply a military anomaly, not divine. But the oral traditions refused to be silenced. In homes, in night fires, and in sacred shrines, the people kept her alive, not as a mere mortal, but as a woman who became deity through will, war, and wisdom. What makes Amina's divinity so powerful is that it was never just about worship, it was about liberation. She became a symbol for generations of women who had been told to stay silent, to stay small. To invoke Amina is to invoke resistance, resilience, and righteous fire. She wasn't a goddess of temples, she was the goddess of dust, blood, and triumph. No one truly knows how Queen Amina died. There are at least 5 conflicting accounts. Some claim she fell in battle, pierced by an arrow during a siege far from Zazao. Others insist she died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her generals. One haunting version whispers that she vanished into the forest after her final war, never to be seen again. But among the Hausa people, one belief towers above the rest. Amina never died, she simply became immortal. To this day, shrines across northern Nigeria are said to be built on spots where her spirit is strongest. Hunters and herders speak of a ghostly warrior on horseback appearing during times of conflict or chaos, leading armies in the spirit realm to protect the land. In Zaria, her memory is etched into the soil, into the bricks of ancient walls, and into the bones of those who still name their daughters after her. Amina is not just history, she's a recurring prophecy. Her story resonates even more today, in a world still grappling with the erasure of women from greatness. In a time when African history was meant to be flattened by colonial erasure, Amina's tale stands tall. Too loud to silence, too wild to tame. She is a reminder that African queens were not just consorts or caretakers. They were empire builders, warlords, and symbols of divine authority. Amina was the thunder that shook patriarchy to its roots. Across modern Africa and the diaspora, her legacy is being reclaimed by artists, feminists, historians, and storytellers. Statues of her rise in Zaria, classrooms now teach her alongside male rulers, and her name is invoked in movements for women's rights and indigenous pride. She has become a torch passed from grandmother to granddaughter, a fire rekindled every time a woman refuses to bow. And so the legend of Queen Amina is not just about the past, it's a summoning. In every girl who picks up a pen like a sword, in every woman who leads when told not to, in every soul who dares to conquer fear and rewrite destiny, Amina rides again. Not in flesh, but in spirit. And perhaps that is the fiercest form of immortality any warrior queen could ever claim. She was more than a warrior, more than a queen. Amina of Zazao was a revolution in human form, fighting not just for land, but for a legacy that redefined womanhood, statecraft, and African power. Her conquest stretched across vast regions from the River Niger to the borders of the Sahara, unifying city-states, fortifying trade, and inspiring diplomacy in the shadow of her spear. Politically, she forced a male-dominated world to kneel at the feet of feminine brilliance. Humanitarianly, her leadership offered protection to merchants, opportunities to the oppressed, and justice through iron discipline. From walls that still stand in the soil of Nigeria to the chants that still rise in her name, Amina left behind not just a map of victories, but a living heartbeat of courage, order, and divine defiance. Her story is not just African history, it is world history. If this story moved you, don't let her legacy fade again. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel for more hidden truths, untold legends, and fierce heroes from the soul of Africa. The past isn't gone, it's calling. Will you answer?